Hi, everyone, and welcome to Crumpets and Tea with me. Today, I want to talk about the book, My Grandmother's Hands. This book is phenomenal. Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. I just finished it. And I took so many notes because it is amazing. And I want to let everyone know that everyone should pick up this book and go read it. And I know that that's a personal opinion. There's people that say that's your opinion of what you like to read. But let me just say that if you are trying to heal and you are trying to learn about yourself and you're trying to learn about your ancestors and what they endured and how trauma we carry in our bodies, and racism, then you should definitely read this book because it explores not just trauma, it explores racism. And for anyone who thinks that racism does not exist, it exists. It does. It exists. And look, this is a quote from here. This is something that it says: trauma is not destiny, it can be healed. Talk therapy can help with this process, but the body is the central focus for healing trauma. Trauma is all about speed and reflexivity. This is why people need to work through trauma slowly over time and why they need to understand their own body's processes of connecting and settling. Sometimes trauma is a collective experience, in which case the healing must be collective and communal as well. Trauma can be the body's response to anything unfamiliar or anything it does not understand. Trauma responses are unpredictable. Two bodies may respond very differently to the same stressful or painful event. Clean pain is pain that mends and can build your capacity for growth. It's the pain you feel when you know what to say or do. When you really, really don't want to say or do it, and when you do it anyway, responding from the best parts of yourself. Dirty pain is the pain of avoidance, blame, or denial. When you respond from your most wounded parts. And it also teaches the reader how we can respond, how we can anchor ourselves. And here's another one. When we heal and make more room for growth in our nervous systems, we have a better chance of spreading our emotional health to our descendants via healthy DNA expression. In contrast, when we don't address our trauma, we may pass it on to future generations, along with some of our fear, constriction, and dirty pain. Trauma hurts. It can fill us with reflexive fear, anxiety, depression, and shame. If something is hysterical, then it is usually historical. If your reaction to a current situation has more energy than it normally would, then it likely involves energy from ancient historical trauma that has lost its context. In the present, your body is experiencing unmetabolized trauma from the past. And the anchors that I love a lot. Let's see, where are they? Let's see. Okay, so here are some body practices where you can think of an interactions. I don't want to go through these because you have to really find space for yourself to do these by yourself or with someone else who can share that space and witness you. But these are really for you to do with your body because that's where we store it in our body. And here's another one. Trauma is anything the body perceives as too much, too fast, or too soon. Whenever trauma is involved, the first step in mending any relationship or any emotional dysregulation involves working through that trauma. And in order for someone to do that trauma work, he or she must first learn to slow down, observe their body, and allow it to settle. A settled body helps the other bodies it encounters to settle as well. This is why a calm, settled presence matters so much whenever we're around other bodies in a partnership, a family, a brotherhood, or a community. And it talks about a lot of the shootings that have been happening in the United States. And we can, again, more practices so we can learn how to harmonize with other bodies. Some of them together. singing lullabies together. And then it talks about mending the bodies, right? Have you noticed? Here's one. Um, have you noticed? Has anyone ever noticed that? Okay, so here's this. There are particular chapters as well that are targeted or that they're for applicable to bodies of all colors, especially relevant to African Americans. And this is one. They help us and our ancestors to survive, remain resilient, settle our bodies, and alleviate trauma for hundreds of years. So there's a lot of activities that we can do together so that we can understand what we've been carrying for generations and generations. And there are some anchors to teach you how to relax, how to get back in your body, how to listen to your body. You can cook together. And this is something beautiful by Susan Raffo. Healing is about taking the time to notice what gets in the way of feeling connected to your life, your community, and your sense of possibility. Healing at its core is about slowing down so that we can better listen to ourselves and each other. There's a lot of body practices that it teaches you. And microaggressions, it talks about microaggressions as well. And I want to talk about that one. Okay, here they are. Microaggressions. Okay, let me start from here. Everyday stressors are the extra difficulties African Americans have to handle, address, or work around on an ongoing basis. When my completely normal and law-abiding teenage son leaves for school in the morning, I watch him until he gets on the bus to be sure the police don't confront and harass him. When I get on a crowded elevator and white people immediately move their phones and handbags out of my reach, I have to let go of my disgust and override my impulse to cuss them out. When I shop and get followed or eyed suspiciously by a store clerk, I have to nod politely, ignore the surveillance, override the gripping sensation in my neck and the heat in my face, and squelch the impulse to scream, "Leave me the hell alone." Microaggressions are the small but persistent and pervasive ways in which white people deliberately, though often unconsciously, express their disdain for Black bodies. When a cashier places change into a white shopper's hand but drops it into mine from an inch above, that's a microaggression. When a sales oh, when a sales clerk assists a white customer before me, even though I walked in first, that's another. When I try to hail a taxi and an available one sails past me, then stops to pick up a white man or woman a block away, that's another one. Here's some more. White Americans routinely fail to show regard to Black human beings by not taking someone seriously. For example, saying, "You don't really mean that," or "You don't really think that," or "You don't really feel that way," or "It's wrong to feel that way." Refusing to acknowledge someone's lived experience, either by denying that it happened or by fleeing into statistics or legalisms. Saying, "Be reasonable," then demanding something unreasonable or impossible. Everyone, no matter what their skin color, experiences such minor violations occasionally. And then it asks you to think back to an incident where you experienced a microaggression. And that's why I think that this is amazing. And look at this. There was one group of people my grandmother spoke of with disdain, dark-skinned brothers and sisters. She would shake her head and say of a neighbor, "She looks like such an African." Once I overheard her say to my mom about one of my friends, "That boy is black, straight out of Africa." When I heard her say such things, I'd get angry and bewildered. How could she diss our friends and neighbors for their skin color or other physical features? Surely she knew better. This was years before I understood that my grandmother was acting out a traumatic retention known as colorism, a form of internalized Black self-hate that reflects white body supremacy's elevation of lighter skin over darker skin. My mother would have none of it. "Mama," she would say, "you can think what you like, but don't do that around the kids. That is hateful, Mama, and we have enough of it already from white folks. We don't need to do it to each other. That pushback from my mother and her steadfast refusal to pass on any of her mother's black self-hatred to me and my brothers was hugely healing. It created a little bit of extra room for me to grow up resilient, healthy, and be able to feel regard for the black body. Instead of self-hate, my mother taught me to see blackness as an asset. And so when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we want to feel great about ourselves. We want to love ourselves. We don't want to hate our bodies. We don't want to hate the color of our skin. And here's a really great practice to think about a time when someone you know or even yourself made a comment about darker skin or made a comment about the color of your skin. At least for me in my culture or in the families within me around me and the friends I had, people would make comments like, don't go outside in the sun, you're going to get too dark. Have any of you ever heard those comments? Put a hat on, you're going to get too dark. En español, te vas a poner como un pan tostado. Right? And so, esos son comentarios también que no son muy amables y estamos enseñándonos a nuestros cuerpos que no nos amemos por el color de nuestra piel. Entonces tenemos que reflejar y amarnos y pensar de dónde viene eso. And this is one of my favorite quotes. Because culture, let me move this a little bit. This is one of my favorite quotes. Because culture lives in our bodies, it usually trumps all things cognitive. Ideas, philosophies, convictions, principles, and laws. In many cases, it even supersedes human desires and needs. Change culture and you change lives. You can also change the course of history. You hear that? You can change the course of history. More than anything, culture creates a sense of belonging, and belonging makes our bodies feel safe. This is why culture matters to us so deeply. We humans want to belong. We experience belonging or the lack of it in our bodies. We experience it deeply. When we belong, we feel that our life has some value and meaning. Social activism is necessary for changing the world in positive ways. But if our collective body is to fully heal from the trauma of white body supremacy, we must create cultural shifts as well. The norms we follow, the assumptions we make, the language we speak, the water we drink, and the air we breathe, all of that is part of American culture. This is the case no matter the color of our skin. Culture can be radically changed. Culture has been radically changing. The birth control pill, the personal computer, and the smartphone. And so I think that it's so important to understand that if enough people, this is from the book, enough people do the same thing over and over, or if they share something with each other enough times, eventually it becomes culture. Can you believe that? That's what becomes culture. And so I highly recommend learning about ourselves. Here's another one. Teach our children the basics of body awareness and somatic healing. Think how much more resilient, focused, and mature your children would be if you teach them some of the activities in chapter 10 and 11 while they are small. And so if you have kids, or if you're planning to have kids, or if you're even considering, or if you work around kids, and you want to learn how to teach their parents or how to teach the kids around them anything about this, because that's the time to do it. It's never too late. It's never too early as well to learn. Then read this book. Read this book. And just know that all of this is carried in our bodies, all of it. And it's so amazing. Rub your belly. That's one of the practices, to rubbing your belly. Pay attention to all of the sensations. I just highly recommend this book. There are so many more amazing things that I could say about this book, but read this book. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this And I hope that you will pick up this book. Or if you don't pick up this book, I hope you start listening to your body and learning and just take away something that I said today. Thank you so much for tuning in to Crumpets and Tea with me. Thank you.